I think that these three, if anything, I think they're underperforming at the minute.
I have that exact same thought, except I think those are the reasons for me why they're not going to qualify, to be honest with you.
That quickly turns into a, boys, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
Kind of conversation.
You can coin flip this either way. Two very, very good teams.
He's one of those voices that can kind of cut through all the chaff and kind of deliver like, this is actually what we need to be doing.
We do the first like 3 maps and we're just not really seeing them be a part of the conversation. Then I become very concerned about whether or not they're making it there.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to QuickFix. It's a brand new project brought to you, of course, by me, Dandro, and my best buddy, Enigma. We kind of were looking at the Warzone space and realized that there was a gap where, you know, some deeper analysis into the competitive side of Warzone and also Call of Duty in general felt like we could probably dive our teeth into it. So this first episode, it's going to be a little bit rough around the edges. We are literally just recording this live, so don't be here, but we are very excited for this project, and I'm very excited for today's video.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be a hell of a time, my friend. Obviously, you and me, we've kind of talked the idea of doing this for a little bit. And, well, finally getting ourselves moving on it. Going to be a lot of fun. Lots of different topics to cover. I can't wait to touch on today's one. Getting ourselves off with an absolute banger, I'm sure.
Yes, the EWC qualifiers are in full swing. And we thought, hey, at least for North America and EU, where there's only 7 spots available, that'd be a little bit fun, where let's rank. We kind of both went in. It's a blind ranking. So I did my ranking 1 through 7. Enigma did his ranking 1 through 7. And we're going to go down on through and see where do we differ? Who do we think the 7 teams making it to Riyadh are going to be? But also more importantly, because, hey, I know we clickbait a little bit, but we're going to actually have some payoff here. Talk about the teams that aren't going to be making it to Riyadh, will not be making it through the qualifiers that are there. And I'm going to be honest with you, friends. I have no expectations going into these qualifiers because we are casting the EU one, but same thing for NA, because we had the meta qualifiers go today, and it literally came down to like a single point from the team in third, being Jukies, not qualifying to EWC. So only 2 spots there in meta. And so it's like, already, dude, we're already off to a spicy start. And that's with only 2 slots available, let alone 7.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, by the way, a lot of people are going to kind of like try and brush over the meta teams, but I think it shows the level of competition that is out there. The fact that Jukies flies on out, doesn't get through, the fact that Robstar and Showstopper only just get through. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what they bring over. But yeah, the 7 teams, it's ridiculously hard to pick. I felt like coming from the 28 down to the 14, I feel like there was maybe like, for example, Europe, like 2 teams that I could have seen swap in. Whereas, I mean, this one was ridiculously hard trying to like just narrow it down to 7. The level of depth that we have here in Europe is way beyond that.
Yeah,
buddy, how you're gonna have done North America, I have no idea.
You know, we're gonna talk about it because I think it's just basically you're just slot machining your way for some sort of guess. But let's go ahead, let's drop on in to our rankings that we have. I built this nice little tool for us that we get to have. So we're gonna start at the top, make our way down to 7, because we kind of figured that we have a good idea of who's probably going to be at the top here in EU and probably North America as well. We might differ on some, which I think will be a cool discussion. But also, I think when it comes down to that 6 and 7 mark, it's going to be those bubble teams. Yet again, the teams that miss out by just a handful of points that are going to be the real discussion topic that we have. Because even coming in here from the open qualifiers, I'm just looking, Louis CM, Liam, and Brandon Skulls, they didn't qualify by literally less than 3 points, right? So you can know that the cutoffs are going to be there. So we're going to go ahead. I'm hoping this works and does what I need it to do. Otherwise, you're going to see a nice little fancy cut here. We're going to go for it. So starting in my first slot, number 1 overall. Actually, I forget it does both of us at the same time. I don't think this is any surprise for either of us. It's the Gentlemates coming out on top. Yeah. I think that they have looked absolutely insane. I think they are obviously, I think, the number 1 European team right now on a lot of people's radar. Bringing in Hollow this year, they're looking crazy. I know you and I were kind of like questioning, like they were looking good on Big Map. How is Resurgence going to fit them? Because when it kind of, you know, came to some of the Resurgence tournaments last year, they didn't really do too well. But it seems like, I think with Hollow, they have a little bit of extra firepower behind them. And I think they're definitely, you know, feeling good on this Rebirth map.
Well, I think this is an example of where Hallow fits the system better than he does, because his technical ability suits a squad for sure. Very strong player individually, but there was always a clashing between Enkyo and Heeds around who would be leading that line a little bit. Whereas I think Hallow understands a bit more about where he's supposed to be. And in some instances as well, I think there's just a better understanding, because even you'll see moments where Enkyo backs off and plays around Grommelok a little bit more and let Hallow do his thing. So yeah, this squad upgrade on last year in terms of the way it works. I don't want to talk badly about Heeds because he's a good player.
No, yeah.
These three looking absolutely ridiculous. Not a surprise at all to be number one.
No, I think they will be number one, especially if they can lock it in, which I know will be great because, kind of going into last year, I know they were very, very excited. They wanted to play at EWC, but just based on how, the invites went out because it was of the 2023 World Series of Warzone, they really just had no shot to be there. And I think they might have actually caused some chaos on the map had they been able to be there. So I really hope that they're able to make it on through to, of course, those finals in Riyadh, so that way they can go ahead and show, especially on land, because this, something we talk about a lot with a lot of these European teams. They're so used to playing off ping, right? And it's like the second they get on land where it's everybody's on the same ping, that's where this team gets a little bit scary to me, is that they are all not afraid to take some of these risky fights and be able to try and go there. And a lot of times you can tell that they're holding back because they know that, hey, we have to be really sure if we're going to take this fight that we're going to be able to get this kill. And the fact that when you're on land, it becomes an entirely different beast. So hopefully they can manage to get on through and show people they have what it takes. But let's talk about our spot number 2. I had Ninjas in Pajamas, as did you, because I think this team is good. I think this team is very, very good right now. And this is just kind of loosely based off of what we saw in those open quals. They make it, of course, to these closed qualifiers with a sizable gap over a lot of the rest of the lobby that's there, which is really no surprise when you look at sort of the caliber of this team and basically their performance at EWC last year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, last year, Oki, now Omenic, showed up, looked absolutely incredible. AJ, I remember a couple of moments where he's just turning, burning, and absolutely frying. And, the year before, he put up one of the most insane individual performances we've seen in the World Series. So definitely a squad that's capable of shooting out. And I think Steve-O goes really under the radar. Yeah. Every time we have a tournament in Europe, he's leading the line. And quite often when we talk about anything global, he's got himself right up there in terms of slaying digits. So this team has a ridiculous amount of firepower. One thing that I'm a little bit worried about sometimes is whether or not they can check themselves.
Yeah.
It's heat check temperament, especially if we start to rock up on global stages. But no, this is a fantastic team. We do have a little tier just underneath the Gentlemates group of really good players in Europe. All three of these definitely fit. And the fact that they were closer to Gentlemates in points than they were to third says just how much they're on the hunt for that top spot.
No, I think if you are Gentlemates, you have to be looking at that as well, being okay, yes, we are the favorites, but it's not because we are blowing everyone out of the water like we've seen in other tournaments and other regions as well. What I like about this team is that I feel like last year we went into EWC and everybody tried to go with this sort of 2-1 strat, right? Where you'd have one player playing heavy anchor and you have two sort of slayers that are out pushing the map and being able to get there. It feels like with this team, though, they could really just run around as 3 and move into that death ball play style, which is what we saw evolve happen over the days of EWC. I remember talking to Huskers and it was day 1, day 2, that team was awful. But by day 3, they looked entirely different. We were talking, we're dude, what changed? He goes, oh, we just realized that basically nobody was playing 2-1 anymore. Everybody was running around as 3 as a death ball. And when we kind of talk about European players, I mean, there's very few. I mean, if we made probably a top 5 list, maybe another episode we could do. But if we made a top 5 list of slayers in EU, I think Ninjas in Pajamas takes up 3 out of the 5. To be quite frank with you, that are there, right? So I think that's why that team's scary for sure.
Yeah, definitely bringing 2 of them in. And AJ and Steve, just got just ridiculous firepower. I will say though, that point about whether or not they're running around in 1 and 2s and stuff, I am curious about, because this year it's going to be more competitive. Let's face it. Last year, because of the invite system, it was a bit weird. A couple of teams got there that probably shouldn't have been there. I don't want to say definitely shouldn't have been, because obviously you earned that for some reason. But a couple of teams were easy to be rolled over. Whereas this year, I don't. This is going to be a ridiculous competitive event. Right? There's going to be so many teams there. Again, the squads qualifying in for men are just insane. So it's scary, but yeah, these guys should be able to mix it with anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you had to fight through the gauntlet of the qualifiers to be there, I totally agree. It's going to make things a lot more competitive. But I'd like to see that we're in agreement with 1 and 2. But what about 3, my friend? Okay, this was maybe the hot take. I actually legitimately, when I put these guys at 3, I was this maybe will be a little spice, because I kind of was this is a little bit of the hopefulness put in there too. But I think you're in agreement as well. ELF, Echo Lennon, and FIFA Kill. They came in 5th overall in the closed qualifiers coming on in. But I do think that they had to go through those open qualifiers, use a lot of those games of closed qualifiers, so I think figure out how they really wanted to play the map. I know Echo was talking to FIFA Kill, and he was just I tuned into the stream a little bit, and he was Echo was literally, he was Thief, I don't care if we end every map with and you have 0 kills. He's like, I literally do not care if you are staying you're alive and playing your life so well that Lennon and I feel so confident that we can just push any team. He's like, we'll gun any team in this lobby. I'm not worried about it. And I was like, dang. That is a statement to make. And like, you got to think about what that does for like the mindset of a player, like Thief. Like if Thief knows that his one job is just stay alive, he doesn't need to get kills. Of course, he's FIFA kill. He's going to get some kills along the way. But like, dude, if he just has to play his life, that takes so much pressure off you. I feel like as a player where it's like, you're not worried about the numbers you're dropping in a map. It's more like, oh, did I stay alive for my teammates? Cool. I checked my box. I'm a team player. Great.
Well, there's 2 things about this that like ELF go into 3rd for me, not necessarily because I'm expecting them to be 3rd. I think that sometimes their ceiling in terms of number of points they can bring home can be a little bit capped and so on.
Yeah.
But it's just a case of like the 3rd team I'm most confident in. Like they will fall somewhere between this 1 and 7. I'm very certain of it, just because 1, you have the ability that's in the team for sure, but then it's also just the fact that like this team with Echo being there, they just grow and move forward and learn and VOD review and get better every single time they touch anything. You and me spoke about it, big map, start of the year, those boys were ass. We came into Trials of Verdansk and we were like, this team, they've got to show up a blow up. Like there's no such thing. Coming Trials of Verdansk, they win the first 2 days and look pretty damn good in the 3rd, just having 1 or 2 off maps. But other than that, looking really, really hot. Move over to Resurgence. This team doesn't look like one that would be set up for a Resurgence in many people's eyes. And then start off a little bit slower, but are punching their way up that leaderboard every time, expecting them to do the same here. But you're right, and you make a really good call around the Echo FIFA kill situation, because no doubt, if I'd have taken a piece of paper to everybody in Europe and been like, who's going to be the IGL, the anchor? Echo. But like, Echo recognizes that A, he can shoot, and B, he wants to put himself in a situation where he can actually play closer to Lennon and tie up in those like fights, IGL it a bit more rather than from a sniper tower or wherever. And so this system that they've got is really good. Really looking forward to seeing if it can work. But yeah, these boys, do I put them in a bracket where they could compete against Gentlemates? I just don't know if they have that raw power, but to get to land, very confident.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those moments where it's like, would you right now? No, but I think you and I, if it comes, Sunday time, we're casting those qualifiers and they're top of the board or they're above Gentlemates. Are we going to be like super surprised, like aghast that this is happening? Absolutely not, right? And so I think that's you put it kind of best. I think their ceiling is really, really high. That's there. They just got to, I think, figure out some stuff. I know they're, I think, kind of playing towards like bioweapons. I think FIFA is landing chemical as well, which I think is a really smart play because you can kind of rotate out of chem super easy, right? Obviously, there's a lot of like verticality, a lot of floor, so you can get lost in it. You can just dive out into the water if he needs to. And well, bio, you see a lot of teams there. And even if they go push bio and nobody's magically there because for some reason we're leaving a POI for free, like you have industrial that's right there as well, right? So you're kind of like, it's like there's a lot of area like on that, basically like 25% of that northeastern side of the map that like they can really play out of and own. And I think that's what their strategy is. Like we want to own this northeastern side of the map. We don't want to let any team be able to get their feet on the ground at all. Like we are going to own this, and good luck if you want to try and play over here because it's not going to be a fun time. Not at all.
No, I mean, it'd be interesting because some of the things is that they are, and this will obviously get a lot worse when we start talking about Riyadh, but they are stuck between quite a few top-end teams. Yeah. There's quite a few fighting. So the fact that you're still walking away in 5th, relatively healthily clear of, some of the teams that are going to be part of the chasing pack, then it's a case of, I'm sat thinking, the fact that you're in a spot where you're surrounded by so many top teams and still doing that just speaks volumes of the fact that no doubt this squad will VOD review, see if there's a chink somewhere else in the armor of this map, and then find a different way to play if they need to. So very much so expecting them to be there. That's why they're in 3rd.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about number 4, my friend. I have Onyx, you have Vanitos. Okay, finally, we have a disagreement, and I love it. I'll let you go first, man. I kicked off a lot of ones. Vanitos, obviously, Blade, Zanks, and Freddy. A really, really good team that's here. Curious why you think that they're going to be in 4th.
I think that this team have almost the opposite problem of a lot of teams that we talk about. They have all the raw talent when it comes to technical ability. Last year we saw this almost group of Italians break on through a little bit. Yep. Zanks and Freddy are part of that conversation where it was kind of like, okay, well, where do they start to stand amongst your Blades, your Vortexes, your Savvy Ultras? But you've got Blade, who obviously has experience at performing at top level competition, having won the World Series previously back when it was just Europe. But for Zanx and Freddy, the one question when it comes to this team sometimes is about their ability to rotate, take advantage of those multipliers on big map. I think that honestly, the amount of teams that they're just going to punch a hole straight through on Resurgence, it just isn't going to leave them. It papers over so many of the cracks that they have on the big map. Big map questions just suddenly get pushed out the window, and suddenly it's about, all right, well, can you shoot? We've seen all three of these boys light up our screens in the past, expecting them to continue to do that. Sometimes I think they play a bit risky, so they rely on that a bit too much. It's a bit high risk, a bit high reward. But if they're good enough to get the reward as they were in closed qualifiers, then finals should be a breeze.
Yeah, I haven't put them very high. Spoiler alert, they're actually, I don't even think they're on my list, to be honest with you. And I think the reason I say that is because I've seen a lot of times that team will go into a lobby, and when the lobby is very competitive, they don't sometimes rise to the occasion, where we're like, and it's not just like, oh, we're talking about like, and this has been big map mostly, but it's like, we're talking about, oh, they're in 7th or 8th, right? And we're paying up top 5 or something, right? Like a lot of the tournaments we do are, it's like, no, it's like they're in like 21st and they're nowhere near, that's there. Now there's a lot to be said, right? They could be, they're obviously playing off ping, depending on the time of night they're playing. Like there's a lot of factors that go into that. Sure. That's there, but I'm just really curious when they can't just punch a hole, like you said, through a team, when they try to do that, and you look at a lobby like this and you say, okay, well, there's maybe like 3 teams I could say very confidently that you probably win that 3v3 easily, which means that there's 11 teams that you're going to have to really, really work for that fight. I just wonder if they try and do that, right? They land POI, they are able to get their loadout, like, cool, we want to immediately start pushing, and you meet up that first team and you get wiped and you're not able to stay alive. Maybe one person does, and it's like you're then put into that Resurgence blender that we've seen time and time again. Like, will you still be able to get the points that you need? And that's what my worry is with that squad, at least. It's personally why I didn't put him as high.
It's a really fair point, and I think that if we get to the point where we start talking about how we think certain teams are going to perform once they are qualified through to Riyadh, potential future episode, then I have that same concern, because then it starts to become a case of like, all right, everybody in this lobby will be able to hold you if you're just trying to punch through them. You got to find a different way to play. That's when I become very concerned. I do think, though, that they have enough of a ceiling about them to get through this lobby inside top 7. That being said, in Europe, it's ridiculously close. Like, there is just over 30 points between 9th and 3rd, with less than 5.2 points between 4th and 8th. So they're still, even though they were 3rd in closed qualifiers, they're still technically kind of in that bubble of one bad map, and it can change our entire story. So it's a fair point out of you. I think that they should be able to do enough, though, here when it comes to our finals.
Yeah, won't be surprised at all if they do qual, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Onyx for me, number 4. Maybe I'm just faded. Maybe I'm huffing the copium lately. Maybe I'm just a bubble CT super fan. I don't know, but I think this team has like started doing really well, and I think there's like a couple different like lines to it that I feel like when it comes on down to it, they'll figure it out. Obviously, you have like Bubble goes to EWC last year, and he's a coach. Yeah, which is AKA he was just a sub, for the record. Like, he was like kind of coaching, but mainly was just like, oh, I'm a 4th player on this team, and I'm making like these realizations for you, right? Like, so
like he felt like the only person there. We spoke to Sage a little bit as well, and they seemed like they were probably the only 2 people there who were like that we saw. Obviously, there's a lot of backroom conversations. But we saw like really trying to do something with that coaching spot, but like, yeah, it's a weird one about how much you can do.
Yeah,
I guess in that situation,
it is tough. But I mean, so he's kind of a little bit of like a revenge tour, right? I mean, that's kind of like a fun storyline for us, right? Like, he's coaching at EWC last year. He knows what it's like to have to travel to Riyadh. I'm sure he has envisioned, burned into his brain, what that stage looks like and like how bad he wanted to play on it, right? So he knows that he has to come out and fry. AB Wiz, was also at EWC and would play pretty well for what it's worth, right? So has a lot of veteran experience when it comes to having to clutch up in these big moments. But I think the X factor to me that tomorrow is going to be, I think it's like both of those guys leading Disrupt, because I think Disrupt, man, I mean, he is just, he's basically this, to be quite honest with you, he's like this year's Enkyo, right? I mean, he kind of comes out of nowhere. He's 18 and he is just gunning everybody. And what we've seen before, when you have that young gun, sometimes it's easy for that young gun to really overheat, or they're going absolutely nuclear, but then like maybe your two vets are really lagging behind. I just don't see that happening with this team, right? I don't. Like, I think we see them work together really, really well. I think either all three of them can pop a three-piece if they need to, or can be that X factor to go super huge in a map that's there. And those are like the qualities that I'm looking for teams this year, is like, who are the teams that like anybody on this squad can have a huge map, right? That's there. This team doesn't have to rely on Disrupt to have a huge map. We've seen Bubble do it. We've seen AB Wiz do it. They don't have to, which then takes pressure off Disrupt, and he can actually then continue to have like really solid maps all the way through, get you those consistent points that you're going to need if you want to qualify.
No, you make some good points. I don't want to reply too much because we will be talking about Onyx again later. But it's a team that, like you said, it's a little bit concerning about, okay, how much were you leaning on Disrupt?
Yeah.
Hopefully we've seen the evidence now that it's not going to be too much. It's going to let him do his thing without having the entire weight of the world on his shoulders. But yeah, we'll talk about them more later. But I don't think it's a bad call at all. Definitely one of those teams that could absolutely pop off, take over the lobby a little bit. Just concerned about consistency, I think, right now.
I agree. All right, let's move on to number 5. I have Heeds. You have Rock Esports, Wars, Vision, and Prodigy. I, of course, got the lone wolf himself right now, Heeds, Niacin, and King Chalk. I don't know, who do you want to start with first? Who do you want to start talking about? I'll leave it up to you.
We've gone with mine first all the way through, so let's continue with that. I guess have some sort of structure to this thing that we're making up as we go along.
Who cares?
Yeah, with Rock, I mean, I feel bad for Wars and Prodigy in the current situation, because obviously all the stuff that happened on the timeline and everything else, and the position that Vision ends up putting his squad in, but they come out and still delivering close quals. So it's a situation where, all right, this team have just got to kind of brush that aside. And I hark back to last year's situation with EWC, where Wars ended up causing a whole drama coming into that, and like with the whole Louis CM situation. So it's a weird one. I'd like a year where a European team doesn't walk into a major tournament under a cloud. It'd be really nice. But I think that these three, if anything, I think they're underperforming at the minute. I think that they've got a far higher ceiling. They finished 6th in the end. If this had been our qualifier last time out, they would have qualified by 3.2 points. And for me, a team that's got Wars, Vision, and Prodigy, like 3 players that Wars has a ridiculous achievement list. Vision, we've seen multiple times he can put up the slaying figures with anyone else. Feels like he's fallen off in that category a little bit recently, but it seems like he can slot into any role in the team. And Prodigy has one of the most ridiculous ceilings I think I've seen in a player in Europe. These 3 should be punching up around the Gentleman's Ninjas in Pajamas conversation. I think they'll qualify. I do think, though, that they have quite a few things to fix. I'm just hoping that all the stuff that's gone on recently doesn't distract them from that.
Yeah, and I kind of have that exact same thought, except I think those are the reasons for me why they're not going to qualify, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, listen, I will also give, Wars gets his piece of the pie, no matter what. If there's a LAN event happening in Warzone, Wars is gonna get there somehow, some way, you know.
Hopefully in a better state of mind than we saw him in Vegas.
Yeah,
that guy was.
That's true. But I don't know, man. I think for a team that we would expect to do really, really well, for them to come in from close qualifiers in 6th, really mid-pack that's there, I'm just worried. I haven't had a chance to go back to watch some of their games that were there, but like, I'm worried, like, were you farming maybe some of the lesser experienced teams, and that's where you got your points to get here? Like, did you have those tough moments that you needed to learn from, or realize that, yes, our game plan is sound and our strategy is there? I'm kind of right there with you. I like Prodigy a lot. I think Prodigy, it kind of gets overlooked a lot for the skill set that he brings to any team. He's kind of like one of these players that we've seen be around for a while, who like can literally slot in as a third on any team and like will do his job. Like, we'll be there, we'll be okay. I don't know. I'm curious about how this team will work when the pressure is on, right? We know that there's going to be a little bit of language, not too much, but it's just like when the heat is on, it's a much competitive lobby. It's much more competitive than we have. I don't know. I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, I understand. I understand because, again, just, you know, there's so much up in the air about them right now. How much has this recent negativity affected their mental?
I don't think that'll affect them, honestly. I don't know.
I don't know, you know, like I'd be looking over it because, I mean, I don't know how much we want to dig into it. This is our podcast. We don't have to be necessarily professional stream here.
I mean, we can give a non-biased summary, I think, like a little TLTR.
If I'm playing in a team and I'm seeing those messages go out, and if I wasn't a part of that whole conversation and I didn't know it was going, if I was, then I'm a scumbag because like we shouldn't be doing that. But if I'm not a part of that conversation, I'm looking at my teammate differently. I respect them less. I trust them less. And suddenly I'm looking down the bench and I'm thinking, I don't actually like who you are. So
that's true.
It's a very difficult thing for me personally to overcome. But also I'm a bit of a soft bitch when it comes to stuff like that. So maybe these guys are better mentally than me.
You're going to really make me go mute that so we don't get pushed on YouTube. You're my YouTube guy. You know that we
get any money here?
Well, okay. Well, no, but with the algorithm, Enigma, the algorithm. Yeah. Anyway, point being, I mean, for those of you who weren't aware, Too Long didn't read about it, and this is non-biased. I'm not trying to put any color on this. There was some stuff that came out about Vision DMing some other teams in scrims. I want to be very clear, in scrims, not in EWC qualifiers. Just about trying to keep teammates alive on either teams. That way you don't full push them and kill them. It was a whole big thing that came out. If you want, I think Vision's response tweet is still up. The original accusation tweet has been taken down. But if you want to go look at Vision's timeline, you can go see it there. But just to kind of give you up to speed with what we're talking about with like when there could be some potential there. I think you do bring up a good point. You know, I was thinking more of the line like Wars is a veteran. He's been around forever. Like he's probably not gonna let something like that. Prodigy seems pretty level headed and cool to like not let out of game stuff really affect your in-game performance. But you are right where, if the case was, you know, the two teammates didn't know that, you know, and yes, it was scrims yet again, not qualifiers, but still, if you weren't in the aware that your teammate was doing that, you kind of have this thing in the back of your head of like, well, okay, then like what else are we being not told anything else that are there? And it could have some doubt seed on it. I don't think that's unfair to talk about. So, but
curious about your Heeds pick here because they're actually going to be one of the teams that I don't include. So I'm very curious about where you're going here.
I think Heeds is on a little bit of a revenge tour. I said that about Bubble. I think Heeds, after getting dropped from that Gentleman's roster, is really trying to show that he was not the problem. There's been some moments in, granted, it was big map, but where it was like, I watched him 1v2, raid and destroy. There were, I mean, even think about World Series last year, even World Series 2023, right? It was last year where like Heats has that huge 1v2 that he's able to have. Like there's been like moments of greatness for him. And I think just like meeting up alongside King Chalk and Niacin, you know, obviously I think this is a really interesting sort of like it's we talked about, there's like some French squads that kind of come out of the woodwork, right? And this is one of them that is there. And I just think that they're probably going to come out swinging. I don't think they're going to be like top of the leaderboard, but this is like why they're kind of in fifth. I think there might be like a 5th, 6th, 7th team that is able to crunch it on in. We play 8 games, okay? So you got a little bit of buffer of some bad games. I'm hoping for them. I think if they can come out and have like 3 really good games in a row, that's going to kickstart the momentum that they have. I don't necessarily think you're faded for not including them. I think they're a coin flip team for me. It's like they're either going to come out swinging and they are going to be like, wow, Heeds is on another one right now. And we know Niacin can shoot. King Chalk's been around forever, also a very talented player. And it's like, okay, cool. Like we feel good about this team. Or it's just going to be like we're watching them get just choke slammed off a rooftop and we're going to be like, oh no, okay, this is not how this team wanted this to go.
Yeah, for me, like this is a big squad that I just don't have getting through purely because of like kind of what you're saying there, where this feels like a team that has to start the day well. Otherwise, if we're just not seeing them in the picture very early, like they finish right on that bubble spot, so 7th, and they're only there by 0.4 points. And I think that I look at this team as one that, yes, as you said, coin flip could definitely make it on through. You're having to pick up between these bubble teams. And for me, I just edge them out because I'm a little bit worried that if we go into like, you and me are getting to Cast Europe, we do the first like 3 maps and we're just not really seeing them be a part of the conversation, then I become very concerned about whether or not they're making it there. Whereas there's a couple of other teams where I feel like they're more consistent in terms of like just putting up solid digits even through bad maps. This team feels like either we run this shit or we get, I just swore again, so you're going to have to go and bleep that, my bad. bad. But or we get absolutely like run over and cut down. It's almost like the same situation with the Italians that we were talking about earlier. Like they play very high risk, high reward, but I just see that paying off more for the Italians than I do for these Frenchmen, and as such that leaves it out of the pile for me.
I think that's a definitely a good analysis. I agree with that. Where I think if we're kind of comparing the teams, I definitely think if you're going to make like one of those plays of like, we got to push this building, get this team out, I definitely think Vanitas is probably a team that will be more apt to do that than necessarily Heeds. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about number 6. I got Fnatic and you have Novo. Okay, I want to talk about this Novo team because I actually really like them a lot. Havix Cams and Vortex that are here. I did not have this team on my list as well, but this is yet again one of those teams that like I dropped it off, but also come Sunday would not be surprised, I think, if they kind of shock everyone.
Yeah, I think that the big thing for me that's impressed me is almost the fact, first of all, no one saw this team coming together.
Yeah,
the Spaniards of Javi and Cams largely played alongside people like Daga and other people, Spaniards. And then obviously Vortex has largely played along the Italians. That's kind of how Europe works. It's one of our blessings, but also one of our big weaknesses in the region, that we can't just put all our best players together. These guys have come together, and I was a little bit worried. It's like, okay, we go into Resurgence, then things flow quicker, they move faster. How's your language barrier situation looking? Turns out they're all right. They finished 4th, still technically in that bubble situation, because you finished on 22.4. 7th was 217.6, so it's not exactly light years away. But I think that there's a hell of a lot more to come from this team just because of how quickly they've come together so well. And it's a case of, all right, well, you're starting to punch towards those very top spots in coming 4th and closed. So there's something about this team that just because they've been together for a short period of time, there's not as much on tape to really assess how they're playing. And it's like, all right, well, if you do the VOD review coming into these finals, we could be talking about this team punching way up there inside the Ninjas in Pajamas and Gentlemates conversation. So there's a lot to like. And Vortex, of course, has history of winning big events here in Warzone. So
that is true. That is true. I'm curious though about the language thing you said, because there was Team BDS who unfortunately, Klaus and Gui and FLS who weren't able to qualify. RIP, pour one out for the homies. But they had said they were like Resurgence. They said, obviously they are heartbroken that they didn't qualify, but they said Resurgence really showcased the gaps in our communication with the language barrier, because it's like, you are going 100 miles an hour the second you drop out of that plane for 15 minutes straight if you're making it to endgame, right? And it's just like, those are the things, those constant comms where you're trying to have to go that, like you said, if there is sort of a language barrier between two Spaniards and an Italian that's there, are there going to be moments where things get lost in translation, where, you're maybe one of them is just immediate, it's just brain reaction of like, I'm calming this in Spanish, and then Vortex is kind of left out to dry. I don't know, right? And those are the things that I'll be very curious about to see as we get deeper on, right? Like with the easier lobbies leading up to this one, did they maybe not experience that as much? But when the heat is on, when the pressure is there, more experienced lobby, will that maybe kind of come out a little bit more? Will we see that a little bit? I'll be curious to see that. But on the flip side of that, it does also make me very excited, because that is kind of like the fun part about EU, right? Is we get squads like this who are from all. That's actually my favorite part about, obviously I'm Mr. NA, but like, cool, we don't care about what state you're from when we talk about NA. EU, we get to talk about like what's your nationality, and it's like they want to like showcase like, hey, we're putting on for not only Spain but also Italy, and really kind of coming on out. So I love that. I love that they're there. Fnatic for me, I really like this team. Obviously, you don't have Stevo this year. You have Padzuka and Enxian. I like this Fnatic team a lot. I think Zakar kind of came out of nowhere. Obviously they came in 9th, so on the lower end of the top 14 that was there. I kind of wonder if they just need to like figure some stuff out. That was like, to me, kind of the idea that I got from this team is like, they're a little bit still in like the growing pains phase, where they're like still trying to grind through, maybe try and work through some of the kinks that was there. Because I mean, reminder folks, this roster, team vitality of last year of Padzuka, Enxian, and Stevo was like the longest standing competitive Warzone trio that we had ever. Okay, like a lot of people, like that's a nice little fun fact that we learned last year. And they're the longest standing competitive Warzone trio ever. And like, so like when you swap out one player with another, like that's gonna change your whole system a lot. And I think they're just in that phase of figuring out how do we fill the gaps of what Stevo left. And like Zakar is going to bring some maybe different things than Stevo did. So where we now got to fill the gaps? How do we have to change our play style a little bit? But we've seen Padzuka, man. Padzuka can shoot. Same thing with Enxian. Like we've seen them win countless gunfights. And I think that they'll come out. I mean, there's also a team who's been under, they have a lot of LAN experience. They have a lot of high pressure situation experience. And I think that you'll really see that come out on Sunday.
So this is where, I mean, I don't have Heeds getting through, which is one of the teams that, it might surprise a couple of people. But I think the first big surprise that's going to come on out here is I don't have Fnatic making it. I don't think that they're going to get there. It hurts my soul to say that. First of all, Fnatic, obviously an incredible organization with a steeped history in esports, but Patsuka Enxin had a lot of love for them over the years, and Zakar, I've got a lot of time from. There's just something about the way these three have come together, and it's a big part of what you just mentioned about how Patsuka, Enxin, and Steve-O, they were like this trio that were like unbreakable, and I think they leaned a lot on that chemistry to get them to where they were. They always showed up at big events, they always did great things, and then they had that falling out last year when it came to the Esports World Cup about whatever went on there. And we take Steve-O and we've put him now in this bracket of this guy can outshoot most people. Yeah. We've taken that out of that team, as well as a hell of a lot of chemistry, and it just doesn't seem like they've managed to replace that with Zakar. I don't think that this is a bad thing on Zakar, and if this team doesn't get there and they decide to go a different way, I don't think it's just a tough one. You're walking into and you and me had talked about this because we cast over them last year. Patsuka, Enxin, and Steve-O, they would play, they wouldn't talk. They had a natural understanding of where each other would be. And Zakar's coming in, trying to play this role of okay, I'm used to this more traditional level of Warzone where we actually communicate with each other. And while there's an incredible amount of individual skill, especially on Enxin, who is an absolute fryer, I feel like once the room for error disappears because of the quality of the lobby, I just don't know if this team have it to get through. So not making it for me. I would very happily be wrong though, very happily.
I mean, that is kind of the motif of this entire thing, right? Is that hey, I don't think this team is making it, but I'd be super happy if they did, right? And that's just the reality is that when we only have 7 spots and more than 7 talented teams, that's just going to be what happens. I am a little bit curious. I need to, obviously we're doing we cast Sunday, doing a lot of prep tomorrow on Saturday. And so I'll be curious when I kind of look at the drop spots where they are landing, because last year that team, when it was Steve-O, they were landing at that ammo shack that's right basically, kind of a little bit outside of industrial. And it was really interesting because I liked the idea of it. It just seems like they didn't really get it to work, which is you got to think, okay, we land ammo shack. We can either push control, potentially third party, which there was plenty of fights happening there, no matter what. You could push bio, you could push into industrial, you could even push up to prison if you wanted to. That was there, right? And we never really saw them. They caught a lot of people who were trying to make their way from one side of the map to the other, but it never really netted in a large amount of kills for them. And it was so interesting to see okay, cool, you have this great POI. I think it's on a great side of the map. You get to watch that entire outer lane. If anybody tries to move from bio to industrial, right, or if control is trying to wrap on out, somebody jumps out a window, you might be able to catch some bullets that are there, something like that. But it just never resulted in anything. I'll be curious to see, are they sticking with that sort of general game plan? Have they shifted it at all? What's the strategy that's there? I'll be very, very curious when I go to see it. But either way, my friend, last section, we have the 7th spot, the last final lucky number 7. Who do we think is locking in for Riyadh? And this is where we differ.
Oh, you've got the Germans?
I have the Germans, baby!
Fair enough.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
I would love to see the Germans on through. They're some of my favorite people in the space, absolutely huge fans of them. I think it is hard because they come 12th comfortably away from the 217 points that would have been required, and it was a considerably easier lobby, so I just think that they're struggling to keep up with the depth of talent that we have right now. I've gone Onyx. This is, we'll come back to your pick in a minute, but Onyx, for me, this is, I touched on a lot of the points that you made, which is I think that we were worried when that 3 came together about whether or not this is all going to be about Disrupt. Wiz as well, I feel like last year, although his team performed well, I feel like he individually was a little bit disappointing on that stage. It felt like it relied a lot on Prodigy and Oki to make things happen. But it feels like Wiz has stepped up a bit. But Bubble is probably the most impressive player of the three right now, because Disrupt, yes, I'm very much got an eye on him. Don't want to apply too much pressure. It's the same thing I did with Enkyo, where I was kind of like, this kid's good, but I'm trying to find someone to talk about without trying to, you know, put this 18-year-old under immense pressure. And then he just went, you know what, put the pressure on. But with Disrupt, I'm kind of also trying to be like, yes, this kid's really good, does need room to grow and everything else. Are you in the right team? Can Bubble and Wiz be that guiding light in front of you that helps you become better? Well, actually, Bubble's decided to take a lot of that pressure on himself and is slaying out at the minute. So that level of momentum and form that they're currently running with is what I think will help them pip this, but it's going to be fine margins.
Yeah, it's going to be close. I mean, Bubble is, it's kind of funny you think about, it's like, oh, Disrupt, the young, just turned 18 gunner, and Bubble's like, actually, I'm top fragger, and I'm over 30 with a child. So have fun.
We can do it.
Yeah.
Excuse. Damn.
Well, you can't do it, but Bubble can. That's fine. All right. Yeah. And I don't know, man, I'm going to be honest with you. The Germans are a pure vibe pick. I would love to see them on lane at EWC. You bring up some good points. Like when you look at the cutoff, they were just away, you know, they're over 30 points away out of the margins that are there. And it's just might be a lot, but hey, who knows when they, you know, when push comes to shove. Yet again, it's one of these teams who they've competed a lot. They've been in high pressure situations. And when that happens, other teams might blunder and that team can activate to try and find, you know, some of those kills, take advantage of that. That's there. Yeah. So, I mean, I would be curious, but I think if there was any team I'm actually going to say, like, if you gun to my head, I need to swap them out right now, I'm probably picking them, to be honest with you.
To be fair, I think one of the things that you and me have highlighted before when it comes to these guys is they are immense on VOD review. Like they're one of the teams, you know, we have criticized quite a lot of teams, and obviously as the Warzone space grows, it's kind of insane actually to sit here, because where we were 2 years ago, especially as a European space, we'd be like, all right, we got like 3 good teams, and then it's like everything else, I'm trying to make up a story about why we're good. Now it feels like we're struggling to pick 7. There's probably a good 10 that we would arguably have tried to squeeze into this 7 here, and like Fuzzin, Pentagon, Melvin, they're one of those teams that before it was cool, and even now they still make sure they do their VOD review and adjust off the back of it. So yes, this close qualifiers could have been bad for them, but if they've gone about their due diligence and they're making sure they're putting in the time, then they could spring the upset. And I'm with you, it'd be a vibey as hell thing to see them get on through. They've got one of the best damn communities in the whole space.
No, I think it'd be cool. All right, that's our 7 that we think are qualifying. Any big names that we didn't mention that you think that people will be a little bit remiss that we don't think that they're going through? I know we didn't really talk about Decky, Lays, and StukeX at all, right? I think that's another team that I think a lot of people would love to see be able to qualify and have some big numbers behind it. But for similar reasons of what we just said of the other German squad, same thing. When we look at that cutoff, you were just behind the ball no matter what. That was there. So yes, you've made it. Hey, it's a brand new day. It's a new opportunity to come out and shine. But I don't know, man. I don't know if they have what it takes to be. And I think for that, when we kind of talk about this, these are teams that we're leaving off. It's not that they're not good. When we talk about 8 games, you do have to be consistent, because if there are good teams who are being consistent, it's very easy to get left behind very, very fast.
No, I agree. Like 8 games is actually a really long time. Like it was once upon a time that a Warzone tournament day was 6 games max, and now we obviously have match point and everything else. But 8 games is a hell of a long time to be out there, and you're going to have teams just fade off. They run out of stamina for sure, and that is a team that, while I can see, and we have seen Decky, StukeX in particular, put up big numbers, and Lays isn't a bad player himself. It's just a case of, can you do that over and over and over again enough to get yourself inside top 7? Don't see it. Interested very much so in, I think for Team Lipton, they've done very well to get to this point. I don't see them making it. This is Lipton, VAP, and SV. Don't get me wrong, SV managed to get on through to World Series last year. So, True. You know, never know. Could be one of those teams to pip it, but you are considerably off the marker that we're looking at. And again, in an easier lobby. A team that really catches my eye is this Swizzum squad, because I know nothing about them. This is authentic Swizzum and Hydra, and very curious to see what they do on the day, because we talk about, you know, new year, new season, new opportunity for new faces to come to the fore. Well, your first big showing, you've managed to get yourself on through to close qualifiers, so maybe there is something to this squad.
No, there definitely is. A lot of big teams. Some will make it, some will not, at least for EU. But we also now got to talk about the other region, we got to talk about North America. So let's go ahead. Let's dive into our North America picks. I know this video is a little bit long, but I think North America will be able to cook a little bit more because I think it's a little bit more definitive where there's some cuts. I think Enigma and I will probably be aligned on a fair amount of these top teams. So we don't have to spend as much time diving into why we think they need to be there because for some of them, they're pretty self-explanatory. So let's kick it on off. I got Twisted Minds. You got Virtus Pro. I think, yet again, you could coin flip this either way. Two very, very good teams that are coming on out here. I think Twisted Minds, I've seen them kind of heating up a little bit more, has been the thing. I don't know if Virtus Pro will be able to run amok as much as they did through some of their lobbies that was there. I mean, they won a lot of their lobbies with the same amount of kills, which is why they had just such a clear mark over everybody else. I don't know if they'll be able to get that same amount of points given the more difficult lobby. I still think they'll do absolutely insanely well. I think I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of Twisted Minds, Aiden, Z, Smith, and Almond.
I think if you is number 2 of yours VP?
Yes.
Yeah,
all right, great. We'll cook right now.
Yeah, exactly. So like right there is like exactly how this is. Like right, those two teams are levels above pretty much anything. And yeah, either way, these boys could easily be both just number 1. Like this is insane. How good they all are. Sage, Dongy, Noobs for VP. Aiden, Almond, Z, Smith for Twisted Minds. I'm with you in the sense like Twisted Minds feels like that they are bringing something extra. Been talking to Smitty as well a little bit in the back, and he like, yeah, we haven't even actually put that much practice in yet. So terrified about where this team could go ceiling wise. And I think that if you are a certain dynasty called the Falcons, you should also be very much so looking over your shoulder a lot more than you were last year. But I think with Virtus Pro, there's just something about Dongy when he decides to take over a lobby that keeps me like kind of on that team so much. I think Twisted Minds is a better balanced team. Yes. Whereas VP has that potential takeover, but to split these two is a hair, so I'm not even going to bother trying to. Going to be in Riyadh.
Yeah, they're both going to be in Riyadh, and I'm very excited for that because not only Dongy, he comes in as a sub last year at EWC on that SGP kind of squad and is absolutely frying. It's like that team had no reps going into LAN, and all of a sudden he's like top fragger on the day, and we're just like, okay, like this is insane. now he's with a team that he actually has practice, he has reps with, right? They're from very early on, they were everybody's look to be a top contender this year, and they are answering the call. So I think that right there with you, definitely very, very scary. I think when push comes to shove, though, when the pressure is on, we know that all 3 of those Twisted Minds players will clutch on up. It's literally it's all in their DNA. We've seen it time and time again. We have literally could pull up a list of all the times that either one of these 3 guys on Twisted Minds have clutched up big for their team, and it would just be an insanely long list that's there. So definitely making it in no matter what. Let's go to number 3 though. No surprise here. Okay. I think we're pretty on board. Now they came in. What did they land at in the closed? 5th. Okay, so they really weren't that bad. They were definitely a step behind VP and Twisted Minds. Yet again, I think we just got to talk about the ice factor with this team. When the pressure, this team loves pressure. Other teams deal with pressure. This team loves pressure that's there. And I know I was talking to Ethan and Ebates, their coach, and I was just like, did you learn anything from the open qualifiers? And he goes, I don't know, run away from hackers. Like that was like his thing. And I just think though, but like coming into this weekend after playing this week, like 5th is not where they want to be, right? Absolutely not at all. And I think they're probably have gone back to the drawing board a little bit on how they want to play some of those maps.
Yeah, 100%. You're right about there is something different about these 3 mentality wise that just keeps them scary even if they're off the pace. Like they're way off VP right now, they're way off Twisted Minds right now, but I'd make them the best of the rest of the pack. Yeah, and I think that they're definitely the kind of squad that can close that gap because there is something about them mentally. We talk about a lot of teams like they want to win. It's like, well, no, these 3 believe they should win just as much as anybody else. They have that ego to them, they have that resiliency, resolve. So yeah, expecting a big improved performance because 5th isn't good enough for them for sure. They want to be a part of the Twisted Minds VP conversation in trying to dethrone even the dynasty. So yeah, terrifying team. Looking forward to seeing what they do.
No, very, very. I mean, they are controlling control right now. So well, right? And they're getting just conned, and I think they're like at maybe 3. It's definitely 2, maybe 3 different teams who've tried to contest them at control, and they're just like cool. Thanks for the free points, dog. Like,
Yeah.
like hey, you can go find either. You want to keep landing here, giving us free points, you can. But if you want to attempt to try, go somewhere else. And I think that's crazy because we've seen a couple teams battle it out of control, and it felt like it was very 50-50 on who would basically win that battle for control and then manage to get the POI. For 100 Thieves, though, they are really locking it on down. That's there.
Yeah. And if you can take a good hold of control as well, it sets you up so well for controlling that entire like stronghold living quarters side.
Yeah.
So if they get that right, then they're gonna jump big time.
Yeah. No. All right, let's talk about number 4. Okay. Wow, we really are cooking NA as we are just
Jesus.
Lockstep. Hey, this is why we're the duo, okay? Don't ever forget. Team Unrational coming on in. Yeah, I think Unrational, Knight, and Adrian. I think that this is a very interesting squad. I was in Shifty's chat and we were kind of talking about it. He was having a conversation with his chat and he's like, I think this might be the most overlooked team like on this list. He's like, that's like a team that like, he's like, I respect. He's like, I respect those 3 players. He goes, especially on Rebirth, right? I think we've seen Knight kind of literally come out of dust the cobwebs off last year at EWC and kind of put to shame a lot of long-standing competitors that we've had in the space, right? Waltzes on up, manages to hold his own, goes absolutely huge in a couple of the maps that are there. And now he's coming into this year with a renewed competitive focus. And I think having 2 very vocal teammates in Unrational and Adrian, who kind of can think a little bit at the game at a higher level and like how they should play stuff, I think is going to help him, basically has helped him come up to speed really, really good. But it's also, man, I mean, I know we know this, but Lil A has been shooting, my brother. Lil A has been kind of going crazy, and Unrational with an HDR is a little disgusting.
Yeah, there is something about like this team that says to us they can be a huge part of the conversation up towards the very top end.
Yeah.
I think that right now they are lacking an element of, I don't know whether it's in their playstyle or whether it's just in the fact that we're seeing VP and Twisted Minds run away, but there is an element of like, okay, they're part of the pack that they definitely are going to want to fix, finishing 7th on close qualifiers, so it's got to be higher than that. But they're one of those teams that when the lobby quality goes up, I still see them performing almost as well. I don't see them being like pressed out, whereas a lot of these teams I'm looking at through the list, I'm like, okay, but once things get better, you're going to struggle to pick off some of those weaker squads, and that might be your undoing. We had that conversation about Europe. On Rational, I don't have that fear at all. Knight came in and did so well last year at the EWC, as you mentioned, and then for Agent Unrational, they are actually at the minute shooting some of the best stuff that we've seen them do in a hot while, and that says volumes for just how good they are.
No, yeah, I think when it comes to obviously these quals, they're going to be. I think they will. I would be really surprised if they don't qualify. I mean, obviously anything can happen on Sunday, but that's there. But I think I've really been liking what I've been seeing as opposed to some other teams. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about team number 5. Okay, here's where we go. We have finally our first difference in opinion on this list. I have Team Believe. You have AG Global. We'll start with AG Global because I'm going to hot take. Clip it, ship it. I don't care. Put it on social media, flame me. I don't know if I see AG Global qualifying.
I can understand that. I just don't see a world in which Scummin doesn't manage to get himself there. Like, my stock of this team is heavily in Scummin. I think he's a ridiculous player. And I don't know, like there's something about him. It makes me think of like the Parasite situation back in the day in Call of Duty, where because of like bits and pieces that he's gotten himself into in terms of conflict, let's say, on the timeline
Sure.
or not, I feel like he should be able to like have a bit of a pick of the teammates that he walks away with, because I think he's just such a good player. If he doesn't make it to EWC, then something's gone horribly wrong there. But yeah, Nate Dogg, he's been impressive. I'm still asking for more out of rated. I'll be straight with you, but the concern for me does come for almost the opposite thing with Unrational. As the quality of the lobby goes up, can you lean everything into the Scummin basket? Or is it going to be a bit too much for him? That's my concern with this team. Probably, honestly, I could have put them down in like 6th or 7th. All of the, like this team and below, I'm very about.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're very hot or cold. And that's the thing is like when they're on, they are on. They are disgusting. They are going to be a competitor with all of the top teams, right? Like these are 3 very top tier caliber players. What worries me a little bit, and maybe this is just, it works for some teams. And if it works for your team, great. And who am I to judge? There's a certain like pace and urgency in the comms when I listen to 100 Thieves, Virtus Pro, Twisted Minds, Falcons, right? These teams who have shown that they can be good. There's urgency to their comms. I don't get that same level of urgency from Rated, Scummin, and Nate Dogg. There's a lot of times where like Scummin will make a call. He's like, yo, kids here. We need to push. And then it's like, he dies and he's like, I thought we were pushing over here. And Rated's like, no, why would we push over there? Like, we shouldn't be doing that, And it's just very like, I don't know. It's just kind of, I never really feel that sense of urgency from like either Rated or Nate Dogg. So I wonder if it almost feels like Scummin is the one who feels like he has to go nuclear. He has to find all of these kills. He knows, and quite frankly, can gun anyone in this lobby that's there. And I think he's just like, kind of overheating a little bit with that team. Rated sitting up in Lighthouse the entire time, sniping the rest of the lobby. Okay, great, cool, you're there. And it's just, I don't know. They have a really good POI in headquarters, being smack dab middle of the map. You can go wherever you want, wherever that zone pulls. You don't really care. You're fine. But it just kind of, I don't know. Like you said, when the lobby pressure rises, do they rise with it? I don't know. I don't know if I see that, because I've seen some stuff with this team where they when it comes to big tourneys, they're nowhere to be found, and then when it comes to $900 scrims on Twitter, they're winning, and it's just like I'm like, okay, cool, like that's that. I mean, which is great. Like, I'm glad you can still show out and still do what you want to do, but I don't know. I don't know if we should be tweeting about it, though. I'll be straight honest with you. Like, a squad of this quality should not be tweeting that they want a $900 scrim. I don't care. The big concern for me, and we had one of these teams in Europe, is if they start slowly, I can see them spiraling hard. Yeah. And that is the concern for me, because if Scummin does feel that pressure of like, look, I'm trying to drag these boys over the line, and it starts poorly and you're watching teams sail off into the distance, that quickly turns into a, boys, what the hell are we doing? Kind of conversation. And that's bad. So yeah, as I said, 5, 6, 7 for me are all teams that could just as easily be in as out. And honestly, I could probably put these guys lower as we have this conversation. I hate to agree with you, but on some point, I'm kind of sitting here like, yeah, I'm less confident. I'm less confident. So, I mean, listen, hey, there's a lot of veteran players. Who knows what can happen. Team Believe, on the other hand, I really like what Believe and Intex have been able to do. I mean, Intex has been playing fantastic this year, just straight up. He's been doing really good, and I think Believe in a game, and Scopes has been absolutely frying as well. And so I think when you kind of pair that up with then, Believe for a while has been one of the hardest kills in the game. That just comes from his extreme background in S&D, right? It's like the number one skill you can have in S&D is playing your life and getting out and bailing out of a situation, right? And I think Believe brings a lot of that to Warzone. So on big map, it's less of a skill you really value. On Resurgence, you value that skill a whole hell of a lot. Having at least one guy who can really bail out of a situation and manage to play his life. I think having Believe be that player on your team, and he's also a fantastic, sort of gun skill player as well, is really, really nice. It kind of falls into that line of what I said earlier. Either one of these three can have a takeover map, can have a huge map where they drop, 10 to 12 kills by themselves and really just kind of help the team that's there. I think they have a lot of cohesion, and they also have experience at EWC as well. So they know what it's like to be there. And I think that they know what it's like to play in a lobby of this caliber. And I think that's something that we can't overlook.
Well, I mean, if you segue into pick 6, you'll actually see that I agree with you, my friend, because I believe are going to be
what a great transition
there straight after that. And yeah, we're working on that crap. But it's a case of I fully agree. Intex, I don't think it's ever looked better. Like, this is an insane attacker that we're seeing right now. His performances are insane. I do some work for a group called 1v1 Me. Both Intex and I Believe actually play in the S&D league there. And what you're saying about I Believe, you see, he's the greatest player that they've seen in that league. He's ridiculous. His ability to play around information. And also, there's things that a lot of our teams do, and that is, we have a game plan. We're going to stick to that game plan. We don't care what that, whether that works, whether that doesn't. I Believe is one of those guys that can go, all right, this other team are actually doing this. Let's take that information and mold it into our sort of strategy here. And I think that he's sometimes a voice that can be, like, he's not the kind of guy to get loud and start yelling at people and everything else, softly spoken. But when you listen to what he's saying, it's all impact. And if he's got that team in behind him in Intex and Scopes who feel like that they are going to respect what he's bringing and listen into it, this team for me feels like a dark horse, really. Yeah. If they can find some sort of like big pop-off map potential, then this team becomes a very interesting conversation.
I think Dark Horse is a pretty good, it's like by skill-wise, should we, not expect them to be there? No, but I think, like you said, it'll all come down to consistency at the end of the day. So you had Believe down here. I have Alpha Gaming at 6. This is, of course, DJ Mas, Raul, and Wow, why am I blanking on their name? Oh my God. Jackal, thank you. I don't know why I blanked on Jackal. I was like, all I could think of was Nate Dogg because of last year. And I was like, wait, what? Anyway, DJ Moss, Jackal, and Raul coming on in. Got to talk to DJ a little bit, and I like the attitude they're coming in. He's like, yo, he's like, because I made a joke to DJ when this team formed. And I was like, DJ, why are you guys ass? And he was like, I was like, respectfully. And he goes, hey, he's like, you got to grind before you're great. And I was like, I like that. Right. So he's like, he's like, listen, he's like, he was kind of talking to me. He's like, we went into every scrim not trying to drop huge kills. We went into every scrim like figuring out our POI. How do we want to play it? How are people playing around it? Who likes to rotate in? Who's rotating out? Where should we be playing in different points in the game? Because Prison's a big POI, and they have managed to really lock down almost that entire POI to themselves, right? And when you have that pressure, you force a lot of teams to then play on that outer ring that we've been able to see. So he's like, and then they were coming into the qualifiers. He just said, he's like, I told them, and he's like, and everybody's online, like, he's like, I don't care if we get first. I don't care if we get seventh. He's like, all I want to do is qualify. He's like, I don't care what place we get. He's like, as long as we can do that, he says, if we can get top 5 every game, he's like, and we get the kills that literally just flow naturally to us, and we can just make sure that we play our lives and get the top 5, he's like, we'll get there 100%. And I was like, okay, that's like such like a level-headed, like that's what like a team of this caliber, that's exactly the mindset you want. Is like, top 5, decent number of kills. I don't care what place we get. I just want to qualify. You can't ask for anything more.
Yeah, worry about that first step before you worry about anything else, right? You can't be booking your flights if you don't even know if you're on your way through. For me, this team is actually one that I'm going to be missing off the pile. I don't think that they make it. A lot of what you just said actually gives me a bit more faith about the way they've approached it, because you're right, they started off terribly. But if they were like, okay, but sacrifice now for success later, then that's a very fair mindset and approach. And actually, I wish more people would do that in our space, to be honest. Sometimes they all play for short-term gain. But yeah, I mean, it's just, for me, you mentioned a big thing there that I think concerns me a lot. It's the Prison. I don't like it as a drop. Yes, you've managed to do a decent job of locking it down, but it's so much to try and control. Leaves you open to a lot of different teams deciding to play for that, for recovery reasons, or for, trying to get across different parts of the map. It's just one of those locations that I just think is an absolute nightmare. It's the reason why our very best don't play there to start with. Also, it can do the opposite thing, where you end up in a situation where you land top Prison and everyone else has gone off to their POIs and you don't see enough action early on. So I think that right now I'm a little bit concerned. If they manage to maximize Prison, then fair play to them and we'll see them qualify. But that, for me, kind of immediately drops spots. We see it as like the foundation to everyone's play, and for me, I find it shaky.
No, I think that's totally valid. Well, my friend, we got one last spot, and I think this might be a spicy take, and it pains me. It pains me for what we're about to see.
Okay, all right.
It pains me. I think to kind of talk about, we'll talk about SAUL first, because I think this is the big one. I don't have SAUL on my list.
Yeah, that is, and I can understand why you wouldn't. I don't think it's been as good as we expected them to be on paper. I think very early after the announcement, they looked great, or just before the announcement, potentially riding off that high, right? Like, you and me have been there, you signed a contract at Cloud9. But like, they come out, Empathy in particular was frying, like really, really good. I don't think we've seen that from him in a minute. I'm still on that Ryder train, though, and I think maybe I'm just like kind of I got an infectious love for this man or something, but like I still have this belief that he's a voice in a room. Like, if you played sport over the years, you played in, competitive gaming or whatever, you have this locker room moment where you sit down with your team and you go, okay, what's working, what's not. Yeah. And for me, he's one of those voices that can kind of cut through all the chaff and kind of deliver, like, this is actually what we need to be doing. So in the same sense of like some of my players over in Europe, where I'm talking about a leader that can help drag their team to the promised land, that's what I'm still looking at. And in Braxton Empathy alongside you have players that should be more than capable of picking up what he's putting down and running with it. And that, for me, will pit them into 7th. But Jesus Christ, if Europe was hard, this one was an even more pick.
I mean, this is, and listen, I love all 3 players. I just, my issue is that when they have bad games, they're really bad. Like, like 2 or 3 points bad. And for a team that's trying to qualify, you can't have those games. And that's what really, really worries me, is that they can have I guess if they can figure out a strat where it's they either come out and have absolutely nuclear games and then you have a single digit, game right after, sure, averages will work out in your favor. That's fine. I just feel like their good games are like most teams' good games, right? Like it's not anything super crazy. They're like, okay, cool. Yeah, we got like 15 kills and we got to the 1.4 and feel good. All right, sick. Sounds great. But then it's like, yeah, the games where they're getting off rip, it's like, okay, you got 1 or 2 points and it's just, you can't manage to have that. And that's what has me worried, is like you are literally afforded 1, maybe 2 of those in an 8-game set, right? Because it's like I said, it's just so easy for other teams to be able to do it. Now, we have seen the squad, I will say, on at least big map, play from behind. So we have seen them be able to regain, like you said, have that sort of locker room moment, sort of come back online. And maybe if those couple of those bad maps happen very early on in the series, all right, cool. Like, learn from your mistakes, make your course corrections, and then be able to figure it on out. I don't know. I think this is going to be, I want them to qual. When I look at it, and especially when I look at the scores, right? Like 7th from close qualifiers was 241. They are 35 points behind that in 9th.
Yeah.
So like between 7th was 241, 8th was 212. So it's just like those top 7 just feel so far and away from everyone else. I agree that I think if they make it in, I think it's going to be in this 7th spot. That's there.
You're right about that shelf that exists. It's a good point. But coming to your team Scythe pick, my friend.
Listen, I know it's a little rogue. I know there's a lot of chatter around this team, particularly one person. I have to ignore that, okay?
True.
I have to ignore that when we're talking about this team, because I can't control whether potentially one of these players is doing some nefarious activities, okay? I, as a caster, would love to decide that they aren't. And then if it comes out that they are, hey, I'm okay with that. Get them out the scene, kick them out, push them down a hill, whatever you got to do, right? Like, you got to do that. But from a storyline standpoint, I like so much more that this is a team who, kind of has been around for a little bit. Like Scythe and Big Man have been, they've competed in a number of events. They're kind of like Twitter Reapers a little bit. And you have Anxiety, who's able to come through and play up. I mean, like, listen, it's a rite of passage of being good at Warzone to be accused of hacking. It just is, right? Like,
yeah, it is.
Shifty, Sage, Dongi, right? Like, so many people have been accused of Adrian, like, so many of them have been accused of hacking. They aren't, and it just turns out they are stupid good. And that's what I am betting on with Big Man. Like I said, if it comes out that he actually is or whatever, is besides the point. I think the fact that they went through and still managed to outpoint a lot of very established, talented teams tells me, I think, everything I need to know. It's one thing for them to be like one of these teams who, like, if they were in 7th, right, or 8th, or kind of squeaked on through like a 10x or something that we're kind of looking at for the points wise, like if they manage to get just over like maybe 160 points, right, they're sitting in like 11th or something. Sure, I think we can say, yeah, why are they here? These guys got 268.8 points, and that's impressive, right? Like, these last final lobbies to get to the close qualifier maybe weren't the highest caliber, but you had to shoot against some good teams to get there. And to get those type of points, you had to shoot against some good teams and be able to take them down. So I am worried, though. Will the pressure get to them? They're very inexperienced, very young. Is that going to infect them at all?
So the way in which Dan got my picks is I had to type them out on a note and send them over so that he couldn't see them beforehand and then put them into the system, basically. And what you end up with here with Scythe is he heard me kind of going, do I put that team in? Do I not put that team in? And that was to do with my 7th spot where I put S8UL. The team that I initially wrote was this Scythe squad, but I'm with you on the pressure element. I think that this is, you won't have that huge head start. I think they had an amazing day 1, and that gave them the confidence going into day 2 of close qualifiers of like, we just need to play all right and we're through. We're good. Whereas you will be starting from scratch. You'll be starting alongside everyone else when it comes to these finals. You've got just 8 games. It's on the day. It is the most amount of pressure that these guys will face in their career, for sure. Yeah. And it's, for me, that's too much. I don't know. Like, we are blessed to say that we cast over pretty much every big tournament in the space. And you see a lot more of that experience that should carry some of these teams through in your Alpha Gamings, your S8ULs, these teams that we're putting on the bubble. With these guys, I fear that they're going to walk in and find it a little bit too bright under the lights. I would love to be wrong for that story element of, here are some new faces to really pay attention to.
Yep.
Let's do that. Also, with you, we're having to ignore any sort of accusations. We just do. That's how it works. But, assuming that they aren't, then that for me is their undoing. The fact that you're going to be loading in and it's going to be a bit shaky leg because of the fact that everything matters from this point. You don't have the luxury of a second day.
Yeah, no, you don't. All right, NA, done and dusted, friends. Those are going to be our rankings on who qualifies the Esports World Cup in Riyadh, and more importantly, who is not making it through. I think we did a pretty good job of talking on who we think some of the teams not making it through are. NA, it's a little bit easier to have that conversation because the who's not making it is really top heavy, right? Because we just, like you said, we have this shelf, so it's like, I'm sorry if the cutoff was 241 and you're one of these teams that scored 156, like you're probably not going to be in that same caliber that's there. I am talking, of course, about Huskers, Breadman, and Lovedant when I say that. They did qualify with 156.4. Would love to, that's a team I'd love to see make it, of course, but sometimes you just got to go by the data. Your kills aren't there. You just barely squeaked on in here. I don't know, maybe they come different on a day or something like that. That's there. Right? I think we did a pretty good job of talking about the teams we think will make it, won't make it. That's there. So, hey, this has been a very fun episode. The very first episode we have of QuickFix. Anything you want to say before we head out on, buddy?
No, pleasure, my friend. I think one of the things we need to make sure we do is come back to this, obviously.
We're going to.
And be like, okay, how right were we, or how very wrong were we? Of course, if any of you have got opinions on how wrong we're going to be beforehand, let us know in those comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know who you want qualifying. Who do you think? What do you think our most faded take was that we have there? But also, hey, if you like the content, you want to be here, we got plenty more coming your way. Do not worry. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good jazz. But hey, that's all we got for today. We'll see you in the next one.